For decades, El Topo was impossible to see. No home video, no streaming. You had to find underground midnight screenings in secret locations. Why? Because director Alejandro Jodorowsky packed this surrealist western with esoteric knowledge so dense, so dangerous, that it could only be shown to those who sought it out. John Lennon saw it and demanded his manager buy the rights. It launched the entire midnight movie phenomenon. And if you've seen it, you know it's not just a film. It's an initiation ritual disguised as cinema. Today, we're decoding the 10 most powerful occult secrets hidden in El Topo. Secrets about death, rebirth, enlightenment, and the price of spiritual awakening. By the end, you'll never see this film the same way again. Before we dive in, here's what you need to know. El Topo means the mole in Spanish. The film follows a black-clad gunslinger, his quest and inevitable demise through surreal and vivid landscapes. The film is split into 3 acts. In Act 1, El Topo defeats 4 mystical gunmasters. In Act 2, he's reborn in a cave and helps deformed outcasts dig a tunnel to freedom. And in Act 3, everything burns. Jodorowsky wasn't just making a movie, he was practicing what he called psychomagic. The idea that film can function as a ritual, that watching it changes you on a spiritual level. He studied tarot, Kabbalah, Zen Buddhism, Gnosticism, and alchemy, and he encoded all of it into El Topo. This isn't a film you watch, it's a film that watches you back. It reveals what you're ready to see. So let's see what's really happening beneath the surface. Subscribe to the channel. This is Occult Cinema, where the screen is the sigil. Let's begin. The Mole. Let's start with the title. El Topo, the Mole. A mole is a blind creature that lives underground. It navigates by instinct, not sight. It digs through darkness, creating tunnels between worlds. And that's exactly what our protagonist does. In Act 1, El Topo walks the surface. He's all ego, all violence. He wears black leather. He kills without hesitation. He's the shadow self embodied, the dark night of the psyche. But after he's shot and left for dead, he descends. He's buried in a cave, and when he wakes up, he's surrounded by the deformed and the forgotten, the outcasts of society. And what does he do? He becomes the mole. He digs, he tunnels through solid rock to bring them to freedom. This is the alchemical journey. In alchemy, transformation happens in 3 stages. Negredo, the blackening, albedo, the whitening, rubedo, the reddening. Act 1 is Negredo, death, ego, violence, the black leather, the desert as spiritual wasteland. Everything must be broken down before it can be rebuilt. Act 2 is Albedo, rebirth, purification. El Topo is naked in the cave, vulnerable, stripped of identity. He's returned to the womb of the earth to gestate, to become something new. Act 3 is Rubedo, fire, completion, the final purification. El Topo burns himself alive, lead transformed into gold, the great work complete. But there's another layer, the tarot. El Topo's journey mirrors the major arcana. He begins as the Fool, card 0, the holy fool who owns nothing and knows nothing. He passes through death, the tower, judgment, and finally the world, completion, integration, enlightenment. And in Kabbalah, this is the descent into Dath and the ascent back up the tree of life. Dath is the hidden Sephirot, the abyss, the place of forbidden knowledge. El Topo must go down into the darkness to retrieve the light. The mole doesn't just dig, it transforms. It moves between worlds, surface to underground, darkness to light, death to rebirth. That's the path. That's the secret. The child left at 7 years old. The film opens with a naked boy riding a horse with his father. The boy is 7 years old, and his father makes him do something unthinkable. He forces him to bury his teddy bear and a photo of his mother in the desert sand. Then he tells him, "You are 7 years old. Today you become a man." Why 7? Because 7 is the age of spiritual awakening. In Catholic tradition, it's the age of reason, the age when a child can distinguish right from wrong. In Kabbalah, 7 represents completion, the 7 days of creation, the 7 Sephirot of construction. But this isn't a gentle awakening. This is violent initiation. The boy must bury his childhood, his innocence, his connection to the feminine. The mother is erased, the teddy bear, the symbol of comfort and safety is killed. This is the beginning of the toxic masculine path. Separation from the anima, rejection of vulnerability. The boy is forced into the warrior archetype before he's ready, and it scars him. Because here's the secret. That boy returns. In Act 3, he's a grown man, a monk, and he becomes his father's judge. What you abandon returns to judge you. That's karma. That's the law. El Topo abandoned his son at 7, and his son returns to witness his father's final act. The debt must be paid, the cycle must close. But there's hope. Because El Topo has a second child, a baby with the dwarf woman. And this time, he wants to do it differently. He wants to break the cycle. but he dies before he can. The monk takes the baby, he becomes the father El Topo couldn't be. The number 7 appears again and again in sacred geometry. 7 chakras, 7 heavens, 7 levels of consciousness. The boy buried at 7 is resurrected at 7 times 7. 49, the number of transformation. This is the karmic loop. What we do to our children, they do to us. What we bury in the desert doesn't stay buried. It grows, it returns, and it demands reckoning. The 3 women. El Topo encounters 3 women on his journey, and each one represents a different stage of his relationship to the feminine, to the anima, to the soul. First, there's Mara, the blonde woman he rescues from bandits. She's beautiful, seductive. She represents material desire, the false feminine. She wants him for his power, his violence. She's attracted to the shadow, and she leads him on the quest to defeat the 4 masters. She's Eve, the physical, the sexual, the surface. Then there's the woman in black. She's mysterious, intuitive. She represents the shadow feminine, the unconscious. She's the one who teaches him to cheat, to dig holes, to use deception, and in the end she shoots him. Not to kill him, but to free him. She shoots him in the hands, stigmata, the wounds of Christ. She crucifies him so he can be resurrected. She's Helen, the romantic, the aesthetic, the depth. And finally, there's the dwarf woman. She finds him broken in the cave, naked, helpless, and she loves him anyway. Not for his power, not for his violence, but for his vulnerability. She's the integrated feminine, the sacred mother. She carries his child, she accepts him in his lowest state. She's Mary, the spiritual, the maternal, the real. This is Jung's progression of the anima. The masculine psyche's relationship to the feminine evolves through stages, from physical attraction to romantic idealization to spiritual integration. But there's also alchemy here. The alchemical marriage, the union of opposites, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, sun and moon. El Topo begins with the feminine divided. Mara and the woman in black compete. They're split, fragmented. But by Act 2, the feminine is unified into the dwarf woman, who is whole, grounded. Earth, she's Sophia, Gnostic wisdom, the goddess who accepts the broken god. And there's color symbolism. Mara is light, surface, ego. The woman in black is shadow, depth, unconscious. The dwarf woman is earth, brown, grounded, real. Water appears with each woman. Mara at the oasis, false paradise. The woman in black with blood, sacrifice. The dwarf woman with tears, redemption. The secret is this: you cannot reach enlightenment without integrating the feminine. The warrior path alone leads to death. Only when El Topo surrenders, only when he becomes vulnerable, only when he accepts love in his brokenness, only then can he transform. The 3 women are not separate people, they're 3 faces of the same goddess, and El Topo must meet all 3 before he can complete the great work. The 4 gunmasters. El Topo's quest is to defeat 4 gunmasters, but these aren't just gunfighters. They're levels of consciousness, stages of spiritual development, obstacles on the path to enlightenment. The first master is blind. He lives in a building with no doors. Bullets pass through him like he's made of air. He has 2 servants, a man with no legs and a man with no arms. They're connected, piggyback, and they carry a lantern. This is the hermit card from the tarot, the light in the darkness, the guide. This master represents spiritual blindness, materialism, attachment to the physical world. He's immaterial, untouchable, but El Topo doesn't defeat him through skill. The black woman digs a hole. The master falls in. El Topo wins through deception, through cheating, and he's disappointed. Because this isn't a real victory, it's hollow. The lesson? You cannot defeat the material world through force. You must transcend it. And sometimes the path requires trickery. The universe doesn't play fair. The second master lives with his mother and a lion. He no longer uses guns. He creates delicate geometric structures from toothpicks, metaphysical shapes, sacred geometry. When El Topo tries to hold them, they shatter. He's too crude, too violent. The master shoots 1 toothpick from a structure and the rest remains intact. Perfect precision. El Topo wins by putting a spike under the mother's carpet. She steps on it, bleeds. The master is distracted. El Topo shoots him in the back. This master represents false spirituality, religious hypocrisy. He's refined, delicate, but he's still attached to his mother, to his creations, to his identity as spiritual. And El Topo defeats him through dishonor, through cruelty. It's another hollow victory. The lesson? Spiritual bypassing is still attachment. Refinement without compassion is empty. and the warrior path corrupts everything it touches. The third master is surrounded by rabbits. He gives El Topo a flute. They play music together. But the master says his rabbits started dying as El Topo approached. Now they're all dead. Death follows the ego. They shoot a crow. El Topo hits the head. The master hits the heart. Then the master tells him to switch. Lead with your heart, not your head. Right brain, not left. Intuition, not logic. El Topo is shot in the heart. He survives. He shoots the master in the heart. The master dies. This master represents illusion, Maya, the trap of duality, head versus heart, life versus death. The master teaches through paradox. Why does El Topo survive the heart shot? Because he has no heart. He's all ego, all head. The master dies because he has a heart. He's vulnerable. He's real. The lesson? You cannot kill what is already dead. The ego cannot be destroyed by the ego, only by surrendering to the heart. The fourth master has traded his gun for a butterfly net. He catches bullets in it. He won't fight. They fist fight instead. And then the master kills himself. Willingly. Peacefully. This is the final test. True enlightenment. Non-violence. The master has transcended the game entirely. He doesn't need to win. He doesn't need to prove anything. His death is his teaching. And El Topo breaks. He loses his mind. He returns to the lands of the previous masters and destroys everything, burns it all down, because he's killed an enlightened being, and that sin cannot be undone. The lesson? Violence cannot defeat peace. The warrior path ends here. There is no fifth master, because there's nowhere left to go. El Topo has reached the edge of the abyss, and he must fall. Death and rebirth in the cave. After the fourth master's death, the woman in black shoots El Topo, but not to kill him, to transform him. She shoots him in the hands, stigmata, the wounds of Christ, the marks of crucifixion. He's left for dead in the desert, but he doesn't die. He's found, carried into a cave, and when he wakes up, he's surrounded by the deformed, the crippled, the sick, the outcasts, society's shadow. This is the descent into the underworld. The cave is the womb, the tomb, the place of gestation. In mythology, the hero must die before they can be reborn. Inanna descends to the underworld. Persephone is taken to Hades. Christ is buried in the tomb. 3 days of darkness before resurrection. El Topo is naked, vulnerable, stripped of his black leather, stripped of his guns, stripped of his identity. He's returned to zero. The fool card again, owning nothing, knowing nothing, and the outcasts ask him for help. They want to escape, to reach the town on the other side of the mountain. And El Topo agrees. He becomes the mole. He digs. He tunnels through solid rock. For years. This is the bodhisattva path. In Buddhism, a bodhisattva is someone who achieves enlightenment but refuses to enter nirvana. They stay behind to help others. They delay their own liberation out of compassion. El Topo could escape alone, but he doesn't. He stays, he serves, he sacrifices. This is the Christ parallel. He descends to hell to save the damned. He takes on their suffering, their karma, their burden. But there's a problem. He needs money to buy tools. So he goes to the town, and he becomes a jester, a fool, a beggar. He performs tricks. He's humiliated, laughed at, mocked. This is ego death, complete and total. The feared gunslinger is now a clown, and he accepts it. Because service is more important than pride, love is more important than power. The tarot fool appears again. Card 0, the holy fool, the sacred clown. In many traditions, the fool is the wisest figure. The Heyoka in Lakota culture, the holy fool in Russian Orthodoxy, the Zen trickster. They speak truth through absurdity. They teach through humiliation. Jodorowsky called this psychomagic, the idea that ritual humiliation can break the ego. That shock can awaken consciousness. The fool is the one who's willing to be broken, to be remade. And there's Gnostic symbolism here. The material world is a prison. The cave is the prison. But you can't escape alone. You have to free your fellow prisoners, even if they don't understand, even if they're not ready. El Topo has become the guru, the teacher, the guide, but here's the secret. He's not qualified, he's still broken, still learning, still failing, and that's the guru's dilemma. Can the blind lead the blind? Can the wounded heal the wounded? We're about to find out. The fool archetype. Let's go deeper into El Topo as the fool, because this is where Jodorowsky's genius really shines. In the tarot, the fool is card 0, not card 1. 0, the number of infinite potential, the void, the beginning and the end. The fool stands at the edge of a cliff, about to step off into the unknown. He carries nothing. He owns nothing. He fears nothing, because he has nothing to lose. El Topo in Act 2 is the fool incarnate. He's stripped of everything. His guns, his clothes, his reputation, his identity, and he becomes a literal fool, a jester, a performer in the town square. But here's the secret. The fool is the most powerful card in the deck, because the fool is free. The fool has no attachments, no ego, no fear. The fool can go anywhere, do anything, become anyone. In sacred clown traditions around the world, the fool is the truth teller, the one who can say what others can't, the one who breaks taboos, who violates social norms, who reveals the absurdity of the system. The Heyoka in Lakota tradition does everything backwards, rides horses facing the tail, says the opposite of what they mean. Why? To shock people out of their trance, to break the spell of consensus reality. The holy fool in Russian Orthodoxy wanders naked, speaks in riddles, acts insane, but they're considered closer to God than the priests, because they've surrendered everything, even their sanity. And in Zen Buddhism, there's the tradition of crazy wisdom, the master who hits you with a stick, who gives you impossible koans, who acts unpredictably. Why? To shatter your logical mind, to force you into direct experience. El Topo becomes all of these. He's the holy fool, the crazy wisdom master, the sacred clown, and through his humiliation, he's purified. The ego is burned away. What's left is pure service, pure love, pure intention. But there's another layer. Jodorowsky himself was going through this in the 1960s. He was questioning everything. His art, his ego, his role as a director. He was asking, can destruction lead to enlightenment? Can violence be a spiritual path? And the answer he found was no. The warrior must become the fool. The gun must become the shovel. Power must become service. That's the only way forward. The fool is the one who's willing to look ridiculous, to fail publicly, to be misunderstood. And in that willingness, there's a strange kind of power, because you can't shame someone who's already surrendered their shame. You can't defeat someone who's already lost everything. El Topo the fool is more dangerous than El Topo the gunslinger, because now he has nothing to protect, nothing to defend. He's become pure action, pure purpose, and that makes him unstoppable, until he's not. The eye in the pyramid. Now we enter the town, and immediately we see it, the eye in the pyramid, the symbol of the Illuminati, the all-seeing eye, and it's everywhere. But this isn't enlightenment, this is the opposite. This is the demiurge, the false god, the Gnostic concept of a corrupt creator who rules the material prison. The town has a religion, but it's not based on love, it's based on violence, on guns, on death. They worship power. They play Russian roulette as a sacrament, life and death determined by chance, by fate, by the spin of a cylinder. This is nihilism as religion, meaninglessness as doctrine. The gun is their god, and their god demands sacrifice. The all-seeing eye is supposed to represent divine wisdom, omniscience, the eye of God watching over creation. But here it's inverted. It's the eye that sees nothing, the eye that's blind to truth, the eye that watches suffering and does nothing. This is the corruption of sacred symbols. What people today think secret societies like the Illuminati or the Freemasons do. But it was never them, it's the greedy and corrupted elites that take the language of enlightenment and twist it. They use it for control, for power, for domination, and they scapegoat their evil onto charitable groups with good intentions, like the Freemasons. But the people of the town are trapped. They're born into this system. They know nothing else. They think this is normal. This is reality. This is God's will. Then a child plays the game, Russian roulette, and he loses. He shoots himself in the head, and El Topo watches, and something breaks inside him, because this is innocence destroyed. This is the system devouring its own children. This is the false god demanding blood. And El Topo's son, the monk, watches too, and his faith shatters. He denounces the religion. He tears off his robes. He screams at the sky, because he's seen the truth. This isn't God. This is the devil wearing God's face. The eye in the pyramid is the symbol of false enlightenment. The idea that you can reach the top of the pyramid through violence, through hierarchy, through domination. But that's not enlightenment, that's ego. That's the Tower of Babel, and it always falls. The secret is this: any spiritual system based on fear is false. Any religion that demands sacrifice is corrupt. Any god that requires violence is the demiurge. The true God doesn't need your blood, doesn't need your submission, doesn't need your fear. The true God is love, is freedom, is the dissolution of all pyramids, all hierarchies, all systems of control, and El Topo sees it now. The town must be destroyed. The false god must die. The eye must be blinded. But first, he has to finish the tunnel. The tunnel breakthrough and the massacre. The tunnel is complete. Years of digging, years of labor, years of hope. The outcasts gather at the end. They're ready to be free, ready to see the sun, ready to join the world. El Topo warns them. They are not ready, he says, but they don't listen. They can't wait any longer. They've been in the cave their whole lives. They've been rejected, hidden, forgotten, and now they have a chance to be seen, to be human, to be free, so they emerge. They step into the light, into the town square, and the townspeople see them, the deformed, the crippled, the sick, the shadow-made flesh, and they open fire. They slaughter them, every single one, men, women, children. They gun them down like animals, like monsters, like demons, and El Topo watches, helpless, horrified, because he led them here. He promised them freedom. He promised them a better life. And instead, he led them to their deaths. This is the secret of premature enlightenment, the danger of awakening before you're ready, the tragedy of freedom without preparation. In Plato's cave, the philosopher returns to free the prisoners, but they don't believe him. They think he's insane, and they kill him, because the cave is all they know. The shadows are all they trust. The light is too painful, too bright, too real. The outcasts are the awakened ones. They've lived in darkness. They've been rejected by society. They've been forced to see the truth, that the world is cruel, that beauty is a lie, that normal is a prison. But the townspeople are still asleep, still trapped in the death cult, still worshiping the false god. And when they see the truth, when they see the shadow, they destroy it, because that's what the ego does. It kills what it doesn't understand. This is humanity's sickness. We're not ready. We're not ready for truth. We're not ready for freedom. We're not ready for enlightenment. We destroy what we fear. We murder what we don't recognize. And El Topo realizes his failure. He's not a savior. He's not a guru. He's not enlightened. He's just a broken man who tried to help and made everything worse. This is the guru's ultimate failure, the teacher's nightmare. You can't force awakening. You can't drag people into the light. They have to choose it. They have to be ready. And if they're not, if you push too hard, you'll destroy them. The tunnel was safer than the light. The cave was kinder than the world. Freedom was a death sentence. And El Topo's soul dies. His first death was the ego. This is the death of hope, the death of purpose, the death of meaning. But there's one thing left to do. The priest's transformation. El Topo's son, the monk, has been watching everything. He watched the child die in the Russian roulette game. He watched the outcasts get massacred. He watched his father's dream turn into a nightmare, and something changes in him. He denounces his faith. He tears off his monk's robes. He screams at the false god. He rejects the death cult. He chooses love over violence, truth over tradition, action over prayer, and he helps his father. He doesn't judge him. He doesn't condemn him. He forgives him, because he understands now. His father was trying. His father was broken. His father was human. This is the secret of redemption. It doesn't come from perfection. It comes from action, from choice, from breaking the pattern. The monk could have stayed in his robes, could have stayed in his faith, could have blamed his father for everything, but he doesn't. He steps into the fire. He becomes part of the solution. And after El Topo's final act, after the town burns, the monk does something extraordinary. He puts on his father's gunslinger outfit, the black leather, the hat, the boots. He takes on his father's karma, his father's identity, his father's debt. This is role reversal. The priest becomes the warrior. The son becomes the father. The cycle continues. But this time it's different, because the monk doesn't take the gun. He takes the dwarf woman. He takes the baby. He takes love. And he leaves. He walks away from the violence, away from the town, away from the death. He becomes the father El Topo couldn't be. He raises the child. He protects the woman. He breaks the cycle. This is the secret. You can't erase your karma. You can't undo your sins, but you can transform them. You can take the pattern and change it. You can wear the costume, but play a different role. The monk is what El Topo could have been, if he'd chosen differently at 7 years old, if he'd kept his mother's photo, if he'd kept his teddy bear, if he'd kept his heart. But El Topo didn't have that choice. He was forced into the warrior path, and now his son has a choice, and he chooses love. This is the hope. The light in the darkness, the redemption, not for El Topo, but for the next generation, for the baby, for the future. The cycle can be broken, but it requires sacrifice. It requires someone to step out of the pattern, to refuse the script, to write a new story. And the monk does it. He walks into the desert with the woman and the child, a new family, a new beginning, a new way. But first, his father has one last thing to do: fire, bees, and the alchemical completion. El Topo stands in the town square, surrounded by the bodies of the outcasts, surrounded by the people who killed them, and he picks up his guns. He hasn't touched them since Act 1, since he became the fool, since he became the mole. But now, one last time, he becomes the gunslinger, and he kills them all. Every single townsperson, every murderer, every cultist, every worshiper of the false god. He moves through them like a force of nature, like an angel of death, like righteous fury incarnate. And here's the secret. He can't be killed. They shoot him over and over. Bullets hit him, but he doesn't fall. He doesn't stop. He's protected, not by armor, but by karma, by purpose, by the universe itself. He cannot die until his mission is complete, until the debt is paid, until justice is served. This is spiritual armor. The Bhagavad Gita talks about this. Krishna tells Arjuna that the soul cannot be killed by weapons, that the righteous warrior is protected by dharma, by cosmic law. El Topo has become the instrument of divine will. He's no longer acting from ego. He's acting from necessity, from love, from the need to balance the scales. And when the last townsperson falls, when the massacre is complete, he stops. He puts down the guns, and he walks to the center of the square, and he sets himself on fire. This is self-immolation, the ultimate sacrifice. The Buddhist monks who burned themselves in protest, Ich Quang Juk in Vietnam, they chose fire. They chose to burn, because fire is purification. Fire is transformation. Fire is the final stage of alchemy. Rubedo, the reddening, the completion of the great work. Lead transformed into gold. The base metal of the ego transformed into the gold of enlightenment. El Topo cannot live with what he's done, cannot live with the guilt, cannot live with the failure. The outcasts died because of him. He led them to slaughter, and no amount of revenge can undo that. So he chooses his own death, not by bullet, not by someone else's hand, but by his own will, by his own fire. This is agency. This is choice. This is the final act of a free man, and they bury him in the desert, in the sand, and the film ends with his grave, covered in honeycomb, covered in bees. This is the secret, the final secret. The deepest secret. Bees are the symbol of resurrection. In ancient Egypt, bees were believed to be the tears of Ra, the sun god. They represented the soul's journey, death and rebirth, darkness and light. In Christianity, bees are symbols of immortality, of the soul that cannot die, of the spirit that transcends the body. And honeycomb is sacred geometry, the perfect structure, the divine pattern, order from chaos, beauty from death. El Topo's body becomes a hive. His sacrifice becomes sweetness. His death becomes life. The bees build their home on his grave. They create honey from his remains, nourishment from his bones. This is the alchemical gold, the treasure that was always there, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. The mole dug through darkness and found light. The fool surrendered everything and found freedom. The warrior became the martyr and found peace. And the bees sing, the hive hums, the honey flows. The great work is complete. El Topo is not a film. It's a transmission, a map, a ritual. Jodorowsky encoded the entire path of spiritual transformation into a surrealist Western. And if you watch it with open eyes, it changes you. We've covered 10 secrets today. The mole's journey, the child's karma, the 3 women, the 4 masters, the cave rebirth, the fool, the false god, the massacre, the priest's redemption, and the fire and the bees. But there are more, so many more. Every frame is packed with symbolism. Every scene is a teaching. Every character is an archetype. This is occult cinema. This is film as initiation. This is art that doesn't just entertain, it transforms. So here's what I want you to do. Watch El Topo again. But this time watch it as a ritual. Watch it as a meditation. Watch it as a mirror. And see what it reflects back to you. Then come back here and tell me. What did you see? What did you feel? What did it awaken in you? Drop a comment below. Let's decode this together. And if you want more breakdowns like this, if you want to go deeper into the occult secrets hidden in cinema, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. Until then, keep digging, keep seeking, keep transforming. The mole knows the way.